The coronavirus is now killing people around the world, in places like Italy, Spain, and the United States. Should we adopt China's model for fighting it? Or is there really a massive cover-up in China? Welcome back to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. The coronavirus, or the CCP virus as I'm calling it, because the Chinese Communist Party's cover-up is what allowed it to spread back in December and January. And we all know about the cover-up and the lies the Communist Party told back then, which is why they're trying to do everything they can to deflect coronavirus blame, like by claiming the US military brought the coronavirus to Wuhan, and using a massive propaganda push to make themselves look like the hero that's saving the world. So given their history of lies and propaganda about the coronavirus outbreak, would it really surprise you to learn that the Communist Party is still lying and covering things up now? After all, the Communist Party needs to maintain their narrative of being the world's hero. So as the CCP virus spreads around the world with thousands of deaths across Italy, Spain, and the United States, you should really question whether the Chinese Communist Party is telling the truth when they say everything's fine inside China. Even Wuhan, where the CCP virus started, supposedly has no new cases, thanks to the success of strict measures. They're lying. And it turns out anyone who can do basic math can figure out that they're lying. The official data from the Chinese government claims that about 3,300 people have died in China from the coronavirus since the outbreak began in December. That's the number for the entire country. But the word from people inside China tells a different story. A recent article in Caixin magazine included an interview with a truck driver in the city of Wuhan on March 26th. The driver said that he had loaded up 2,500 ash-filled urns and delivered them to a funeral home in Hankou district, and that he did the same number the day before. So that's 5,000 urns in 2 days from one funeral home, in one city, in a country that claims only 3,300 people have died from the coronavirus in the past 3 months. Now sure, some of those urns could represent natural deaths. According to data from provincial authorities in 2018, an average of 131 people die each day in Wuhan. Let's round up to 200 because hey, maybe there was a particularly deadly truck pileup on the busy streets of Wuhan. We're still talking about more urns on this truck in 2 days than the official coronavirus death toll in all of China in 3 months. This is a lot of dead people. Yes, each cardboard box is one urn. And according to Caixin, there are 3,500 urns in this photo. I've given just one example from one funeral home, so I hope by this point you're thinking, something fishy is going on. What's the real death toll from the CCP virus across China? Well, probably nobody knows the exact number, because there are lots of great ways to cover up the death toll. And some of them work so well that officials can no longer keep track even if they wanted to. One way to cover up the death toll is force people to stay in their homes. Don't actually test them. If they die, they were never tested for the CCP virus, so they don't count in the official statistics. Back in January and February, reporters inside China had documented multiple cases of this exact thing happening. Patients died of the coronavirus, but they were never officially tested. A second way to cover up the death toll is, if someone dies of complications from the CCP virus or had an underlying condition, doctors are encouraged to write that as the cause of death. Like it'll say severe pneumonia or heart disease instead of the coronavirus. This also doesn't get counted in the official statistics. For a long time, China has done this with flu deaths too. That's one reason that China reports extremely low numbers of deaths from the flu, only dozens of cases a year. By contrast, the US government uses statistical modeling to estimate the number of influenza-associated deaths in America each year, which is usually in the tens of thousands. This is why I say don't trust official Chinese government statistics. There are so many ways to manipulate them. A third way to cover up the CCP virus death toll is blatant censorship. China's most popular social media app, WeChat, has been censoring user-posted content related to the coronavirus since January. A fourth way is authoritarian pressure. The official party line since mid-March has been that the spread of the virus has been basically curbed in Hubei province and the city of Wuhan, the original epicenter. So imagine you're a local official in Wuhan, and you see that people in your district are continuing to die from the coronavirus at an alarming rate. Or even worse, it looked like things were getting better, but now they're getting bad again. You can either A, tell the higher-ups that a lot more people are dying and dear leader Xi Jinping's official narrative is wrong, or B, keep your fool mouth shut and sweep the ashes under the rug. I think they're all choosing option B, so they can keep their jobs and their lives. This is the reality of being a local official in an authoritarian regime. You're forced to toe the party line. It's like the 1986 Chernobyl accident in the Soviet Union. Watch that show Chernobyl on HBO, and you'll see how everyone's first response is to downplay how bad things are because they don't want to get in trouble. Nuclear meltdown? It's not possible. It's just small fire. So for all these reasons, we know there's a cover-up of the death toll from the CCP virus in China. How many people have really died? Let's look at some estimates. I've seen reports that China has lost 21 million mobile phone subscribers in the past 3 months, and maybe this means they're all dead. That's probably not what's happening. According to official data, the number of mobile phone lines dropped from 1.6 billion to 1.579 billion. Going from 1.6 billion down to 1.579, that's about 21 million fewer phone lines. But even 1.579 billion is vastly more phone lines than people in China, including babies. Which is to say, a lot of people have more than one mobile phone, or more than one SIM card in each phone. Dual SIM phones are pretty common in China, and at a time of economic crunch, it makes sense to cancel extra lines. Like, you had to close your small business? Cancel that extra line. You and your wife are quarantined in Wuhan, and you can't travel to Shanghai to see your mistress. Cancel her extra line. If 21 million people had died from the CCP virus, that's probably too many people to cover up. But the Chinese regime could easily be covering up a death toll that's in the tens of thousands, still much bigger than the official death toll of 3,300. That seems to be what's happening. This article in the UK's Daily Mail says scientific advisors told Prime Minister Boris Johnson that the number of cases of coronavirus in China could be downplayed by a factor of 15 to 40 times. Now, I'm not saying the Daily Mail is the most trustworthy source of news, but they're not the only ones making this claim. And a factor of 15 to 40 times sounds about right based on, again, some simple math. This Radio Free Asia article looks at a few different estimates for the death toll. It says some social media posts have estimated that all 7 funeral homes in Wuhan are handing out 3,500 urns every day in total. And they're trying to complete this before April 5th. That's China's Qingming Festival, the annual holiday where you're supposed to go to your ancestors' grave, or the place where their ashes are stored, and burn incense. Or burn money, so your ancestors can get rich in the afterlife. Anyway, the article says funeral homes in Wuhan have been handing out 3,500 urns every day starting March 23rd, which is 12 days before the Qingming Festival begins. Such an estimate would mean that 42,000 urns would be given out during that time. In a normal year, about 10,000 people would die in Wuhan from January through mid-March. Even so, we're talking about roughly 32,000 unexplained deaths. That's a lot of extra urns full of ashes. Another estimate looks at the cremation activity of funeral homes in Wuhan. People in Wuhan have reported that funeral homes have been cremating bodies non-stop 24 hours a day. With a total of 84 furnaces running at max capacity, this calculation results in an estimated 46,800 deaths. One Wuhan resident told RFA that city officials have been handing out hush money to families in exchange for their silence about how their loved ones died. All this is to say, Chinese officials are covering up a massive coronavirus death toll in Wuhan. And if they're doing it there, they're probably covering it up in other parts of China too, although Wuhan was the hardest hit area. That makes the estimate given to Prime Minister Boris Johnson seem plausible, that the real death toll in China is 15 to 40 times higher than reported. Incidentally, Boris Johnson himself has tested positive for the coronavirus, after visiting a hospital and shaking hands with everybody. But my point is, when Western media report that Italy's death toll overtakes China's, or that Spain's death toll surpasses China's, that is really sloppy reporting, because they're comparing death tolls reported by transparent Western governments with death tolls reported by a brutal authoritarian regime that for sure covered things up back in January and is almost certainly still covering up things now. And that's a big deal, because the Chinese regime is in an all-out propaganda push, saying other countries should use China's model for fighting the coronavirus. Hopefully people reading those misleading articles won't fall for it. So when Western media ask, can China's coronavirus strategy work elsewhere? The answer should be no, because it hasn't even worked in China. Next, I'll answer a question from a China Uncensored supporter, one of the people who contributes to us through the crowdfunding website Patreon. Sandra Wu asks, I just learned of a petition at this whitehouse.gov link. What do you think of this? Would you be talking about this in a future episode? Thanks for your question, Sandra. So here's the petition. It says, let's start calling the novel coronavirus the CCP virus. It's not my petition, but I totally agree with the idea. In fact, 2 days before that petition was created, I made a similar suggestion. It was the Chinese Communist Party that turned a small number of infections into a global pandemic by covering it up. And that's exactly what they're trying to distract us from. So, let's call it what it really is. The CCP coronavirus. And lately I've been calling it the CCP virus for short. So yeah, it's a great idea. And it's much better than calling it the Chinese virus, because the Chinese regime can't claim we're being racist if we call it the CCP virus. I don't know whether the petition will convince President Trump, but it might be seen by his advisors. Regardless, signing it sends a strong message. So I would encourage people to sign it, and also to get your friends and family to adopt the term CCP virus in everyday conversation. In fact, I've created a special graphic that you can spread on social media. I put a link for that in the description below. Have fun. Thanks for watching, and thank you to my supporters who help us keep the show going. You can support us by contributing $1 or more per episode on the crowdfunding website Patreon, or you can contribute through PayPal or with Bitcoin. Details are below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.